Good morning, beautiful beings. Thank you for tuning in. Now, I wanted to do a slightly different video today. I'm going to do a whiteboard video. My whiteboard is my new favorite thing, and there's something that I wanted to demonstrate to give us a bit of a framework to find an extra layer of awareness that I think all of us are really tuning into at the moment. So I had a really beautiful group call with my Patreons yesterday, and we were going into the depths of how we were creating our identity and how that sense of self really needs to be a forever updating system, and the risks involved with creating an identity from trauma or from our past or from our pain. So I wanted to discuss something and demonstrate something for you today to see if it creates a couple of light bulb moments for you that you can start constructively working with. So I think what we all need as a remedy at the moment is practical actions that get us further into our creative fire so that we're creating each day and we can move away from the conditioning, the triggers, the programs that are greatly keeping us stuck at the moment. Okay, so I wanted to discuss something called the drama triangle. You may have heard of this before, or maybe not, but let's see if we can find a new edge to it. So this was created by Stephen Karpman back in the 60s, and it is still relevant today. So we are talking about 3 different relationship paradigms. Now this happens within ourselves and it happens with other people. But like any of these tools and techniques that help us understand our personality a bit more, please know that anything you discover about your personality, whether it's your astrological chart, your personality type, your numbers, whatever resonates with you, please know that those constructs are there for you to evolve from. They are not there to provide, this is everything that you are, and now you are stuck in that. It is never like that. It has to be, here's a little bit more information so that you can then refine what that means. You can make it more authentic to you. You can evolve beyond that paradigm to create something that serves you more. Yeah? So in Chinese medicine, we talk about your constitution. Your constitution is almost like where your body will find its own balance if it's not pushed to a further refinement. Yeah, so I like to reframe your constitution to your default programming, which means how you will act and behave according to your past, your upbringing, your parenting, who you are, your environment, where you were born, your culture, all these things, right? Your default programming will almost be the way that your subconscious is running in the background to provide you with an experience or an existence that is in relationship to your past. Yeah? So what a lot of people are really getting deep resonance with is that we understand that our subconscious programming is there is to serve us, and a lot of what we pick up when we're children from our parents and our environment. But yet subconscious programming is malleable. We can change our programming. We can identify and clear and shift and move beyond what our past tells us. Now, this is a lot to do with the awakening journey. This is a lot about increasing self-awareness so that we can dive into the depths of our intuition, so that we can move beyond simply who we are as a product of our environment or who we are as a product of our DNA that comes from our parents, right? And that's what everyone's really wanting to hear more of at the moment, because we don't want to be burdened by that. We don't want to identify just with these constructs that tell us about ourselves, but sometimes they forget to encourage that, okay, now you know that little bit of information or a little bit more a piece to the puzzle. Let's evolve from it. You're meant to evolve from your parents and your parenting. You are meant to evolve through your environment and what it gives you. We can evolve our subconscious programming, our conscious minds, the parts of our unconscious can be woken up as well. So let's take a construct that relates to relationships, because I know everyone greatly loves a little bit more information in this area of our lives because it brings us so much joy and so much fulfillment. It can also bring us a lot of pain, right? So the drama triangle identifies 3 constructs. The first is the victim. I think we all have a good reference point for the victim. It's a archetype that comes out when we're feeling helpless, hopeless, powerless. Yeah? The victim says, why me? Why does this always happen to me? It is very much a deep construct of your 3D reality that has been programmed into you for some reason, and it's usually because it's the way that you've learned how to get love and attention, and this could be a really old paradigm as well. But the part that I want us to explore is the victim does service at times. The victim has a place. This is an archetype that we need at times. It is an excellent point to spark more awareness. If we ask the right questions in the victim mentality, we can pull ourselves up into a different plane and we can start refining that archetype. What I'm saying is the victim is a great teacher for all of us. So it is not a weaker, less evolved expression, not at all. It's a beautiful teacher that often comes to us in our deepest, darkest times. Let's move on to the persecutor. The persecutor is a lot like the bully. It's the person that will, or the part of ourselves that will come in when we just really need things to be more efficient and in more order. So the persecutor will come in and say, you're doing that wrong. I need you to get this more right. You need to do that over there. And please know that these expressions are usually to gain some kind of control or power, but they usually come from a lack of power. And we'll talk about the different variants in a second. So the persecutor is there. We can all identify someone in our lives that has that expression, or quite possibly ourselves at times in different situations. The rescuer is a lot like the hero. The rescuer wants to fix and solve and heal and soothe. And the rescuer often dives in, possibly when they're not asked, to do all the things for everyone else. And there is a power play going on there. So the rescuer is something that a lot of people do identify with. It is something that possibly they learnt or have learned from many lifetimes to feel useful, to feel loved, for more attention and all these things, yeah? So these 3 dynamics play out in all of us. We can use them to understand how each mentality can invite in an opposite effect energetically in other people. We can use it to see within ourselves how we flick between different expressions to find something that makes us feel the most powerful. And that will be based on our wounding and our conditioning that we're either trying to get away from, or we're trying to cope with, or we're trying to manage in some way. So these are also interchangeable. We can flick between each one depending on the situation, depending on who we're around, who we're relating with, how we're feeling. But one will represent, there'll be a grab with one of them for you. The grab will represent the one that you most easily find, maybe the one that you have more success with, the one that people accept more, or the one that possibly is expected of you due to who you are and your environment and how you've been brought up, things like that. But let's never see this as a burden. So just if you identify with the victim mentality more than the others, it doesn't mean that you need to be a victim all the time and that you're burdened with that and that's the end of it for you. Not at all. If you can be courageous and identify with this mentality as a way that you relate to yourself and to other people, That is a triumph in itself, to just honor that this comes through you at times, and it is more easily found than the persecutor or the rescuer, or doesn't matter which one it is for you. If we can identify that and have courage to say, you know what, yeah, I do find that expression really easily, that is a brilliant starting point for us to then ask the questions. Is this serving me? How could I refine this? How could I find a expression that serves me better? And how can I use this to fuel my own healing, to fuel my own self-development or my own authenticity? How do I find what I need out of what looks like something that I might not be comfortable with, right? So this is not good or bad. There's no shame or judgment in this. This is an area of beautiful opportunity, yeah? So let's think about each archetype or each personality trait or expression and how we can work towards refining that expression to something different. So the victim in a more evolved expression would become the survivor. Now, this does often happen. This does ignite in us, particularly when we go through a lot of trauma. We do get to the place that says, well, if I'm just going to wallow here for a long time, I feel like I won't be able to get out of it. Yeah, the further we go down the victim hole, often the less empowered we feel. So becoming a survivor or reaching for the actions and the behaviors and the thought patterns that a survivor would have, we can use the victim mentality to bring us into further awareness so that we can integrate that part of our lives. So every situation that you've ever had to feel like a victim can be used to propel you into a different expression, to that of a survivor. So we are starting to see that there is room for movement here. If we identify with or can relate to a situation where we find the expression of a persecutor, and this could also be who else is in your life that you could be like, they're a persecutor, that person's a rescuer, that person can be a victim. I identify with this part, but I do flick in between depending on how I'm feeling. If you can identify with the persecutor or you know people that are, let's think of the persecutor as someone that can be refined into the challenger. The challenger has a different energy to it for me. The persecutor is someone that is trying to protect themselves. It is a self-serving, so is the victim and the rescuer. The challenger is someone that feels like in their full expression, they have a beautiful artistic way of giving people that little push that they know they need in respect of where their capacity is. Yeah? So these different expressions can almost be like the light aspect of the shadow. A shadow value, a shadow aspect is just something that's still unconscious, something we don't know about. When we bring it into the light, we can use it. We can refine it. That's what our whole incarnation is about. Finding the darkness, the unconsciousness, and taking it into the light, into consciousness, so we can use it, right? In the darkness, it stays as default programming. It stays in the unknown, and it can become simply somewhere that we can find discomfort from. Most people, when they're aware of a pattern or a situation, or they're aware of even that something keeps on repeating and there's a loop, as soon as your awareness takes you there, it's already changing. It's already brought into the light. We're already working on it. We're already creating something new. Now, in that creative phase is usually where people hit a limitation with what they have according to their own skills. That's why learning and training and studying different self-development techniques can be so beneficial, because then we have a way to work constructively and creatively with what we find out about ourselves. Yeah? So the rescuer, if the rescuer can become resourceful, then they can use their beautiful tendencies to fix and to help and to heal in a way that encourages people to do it themselves. But being resourceful has strong boundaries to it. And yes, we will talk about boundaries because it's huge at the moment. So the rescuer almost becomes like the coach. The rescuer allows the opportunity to help someone to be there. Ask the questions, what resources do I have to help? And is it my position to help? What can I give this person? And how can I make sure that I don't go beyond my capacity, right? Because the rescuer can invite in the victim. The victim can invite in the persecutor, and vice versa. So sometimes when we fall into a default programming, we allow others to go into theirs as well. So bringing this into conscious connection, into relationships, we really want to be aware of where we can get caught up and where we can go down a hole of conditioning and automation and this stuff that just plays out before we even realize it. And be aware of that before we enter our beautiful conversations or a new relationship, or before we reach discomfort, arguments, toxicity, before we get to that place when we're at risk of hurting ourselves and other people. Because at the basis of this is we don't want to hurt anymore. We don't want to create or cause pain in ourselves or other people. So at the core of this is, how do I find more love? How do I realize that I am love? How do I share more love? And how do I get away from fear? Yeah? Because most of our constitution, our default program, is to manage fear. Yeah? But managing fear is still making fear the central part of our lives. Managing love is making this beautiful, abundant source of energy more plentiful. Yeah? So in this drama triangle, you might already have some aha moments about what you're calling in, what other people are showing you, what reflections you're getting. Finding the action steps to make it practical to get to the more constructive version is something that you can start thinking about and strategizing about. So the victim can become the survivor by making sure they check in with themselves about what they're grateful for, what they're feeling, what they would prefer to be feeling, when they achieve, making sure they celebrate it, and focusing on the parts that reinforce that they're a survivor. Some beautiful questions for the victim is, if I felt completely powerful, what would I be doing differently? What made me feel powerful this week? What made me feel powerful in that conversation? What made me feel powerful about my past? It's a reframing experience so that we can cultivate more of what the survivor feels like in our body and in our frequency. The same with the rescuer. The antidote and the remedy for the rescuer is boundaries, 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 and more boundaries. So the rescuer can work on seeing someone in discomfort, seeing and hearing that someone has a problem, and holding onto the tendencies that they want to fix and they want to solve and that they know how to solve, and making sure that they don't help anyone unless they are asked. And understanding that there's resources there for us that we desperately need. We need our own resources. We need to fill up our own energy tanks. There's too many people burnt out, low energy, overworked, not creative enough. So the rescuer needs to be very deeply understanding that there is a capacity that they have to help others that can never be a priority over the capacity they have to help and heal themselves. So what it sounds like is the rescuer before would go in, fix, help, do everything for that person, mother them, take care of them, all the rest of it. A resourceful person, or someone that's a bit more like a support, a mentor, something like that, can say, I hear that you're in pain and I'd really like to help. I've got an hour later in the day to listen to you. Would that help in any way? The rescuer needs to get really good at saying no. No, I don't have the capacity to do that. No, I feel I don't have the energy to help you. I don't even know if you're asking me for help, but that's how I feel. So I'm going to tap out and give myself some time and space. That discomfort that comes from the gap between rescuer and resourceful is what we need to get used to. The same with the victim. When they want to wallow in everything that's gone wrong and recap every situation in their lives where they have been the victim, there is a gap, an opportunity there to say, or to interrupt, or to hack, where have I actually been powerful? How can I find more power in this situation? What resources do I have to give to that person or to myself? The persecutor becoming the challenger is also about that window of opportunity. So understanding when to challenge and how much to challenge is the art form of the challenger. So the persecutor will come in powerful and will almost use their power to make sure that everybody is falling in line with what they think they know more of. Yeah? The challenger would decide with consent and permission, is this a situation that you want me to push you a little bit because I think there's a good opportunity for that? With that consent, the same can happen with the rescuer. Ask for consent to help first. Same with the victim. They can ask consent of themselves before they wallow in their own victim state. Essentially, we are all abundantly resourceful, we are all survivors, and we can all challenge ourselves. Yeah, this is how we fill up our own tanks and our own wounding, so we relieve other people of needing to do that for us too. When we become these more refined expressions, when we move ourselves into a more serving state, a more whole state, we can facilitate our own journey towards unraveling our conditioning and creating new programs, new actions, behaviors, and thought patterns that facilitate these more constructive areas. Yeah? So I'll finish on this. Remember that your conditioning, your personality, your sense of self, your identity is all something that you can create. It is an artistic expression of how you take what you are, pure source code love energy, and how you integrate that with your environment, who and what is around you, the conditions that you're in, and you create a life, you create your own finesse and art form about how you want to be here. Right? When we create our identity and we're not burdened by it, we can create whatever we want. But the beautiful part is when someone starts to take what they've been through, whether that's light or dark or indifferent, and they start to use that as fuel, as integration, as the lessons that will help them to stay in authenticity, and they start to create something new where they have more capacity for love, to receive it and to give it, where they start coming up with beautiful, fresh ideas and wonderful epiphanies around how much capacity they have to be here in this life, in this moment, in the fullest way possible. For me, that is art. That is creativity. That is seeing someone shine. That is seeing that they can take the simplest of tools, the smallest of messages in their environment, the biggest or smallest expressions of who they are, and then they can create more with it and use it as fuel for another part of their life and another and another. so that their identity becomes this ever fluid state of who they are and their warmth and their expression. And it doesn't need to be the way that anybody else is doing it. It's your own unique way, your own unique expression, the way that you take yourself into further levels of awareness. And that means that we are forever crumbling and dissolving the conditioning that doesn't serve us, the thought patterns that aren't ours, the belief systems that actually keep me too small. This is not about ego. This is about humbly and gracefully realizing who you are from the most foundational levels and allowing yourself to rise through into growth and healing constantly. Doesn't need to be a burden, doesn't need to be a curse of any kind. This might put another piece of the puzzle together for you. Refine those expressions, use them, let them be your teachers, let them be your reminders. When you fall into default programming, when you go backwards into old thought patterns and old relationship styles, just carefully, mindfully and compassionately bring yourself back and ask yourselves the question, am I being resourceful? Am I challenging with consent? Am I feeling like I am surviving? Am I resource rich? How can I use this to learn more and to grow more? Thank you, beautiful beings. Thank you so much for letting me be vulnerable and sharing my whiteboard moment with you. Let me know how you're resonating with this. If you'd like more videos like this, I'm happy to do more. I've got so much juicy content. Let me know, send me a DM, anything you want to do. Thank you so much. Heaps of love.